Okay, now we're in business. All right, cool. Okay, and then let me go back to share screen. All right. So let me talk a little bit about people real quick. When I go look for, I do two things when I go to draw. I start with body and I start with faces. Faces are easier for me. It's the way I like to work before I get into body. Okay, old people tend to have this type of look and feel to them. So I was looking at, first of all, there's so many different body shapes. I have people that are going to be like this. They're going to be tall and thin body shapes. If they're old, they might have a body shape that looks something like this. Okay. And then old people tend to have a little bit of that seventh vertical vertebrae pop. I just realized I have to draw a lot darker because these don't even show up on the monitor. Doing like base construction here. Okay, let me get that line a little bit darker. For some reason, there you can see it a little bit more. And then maybe my face of a grandma might look like this. Her hair. One thing I notice about old people, the more I'm sketching them, is the hair shapes are quite unique. Women don't lose their hair like men do. And so they tend to have like really poofy hair where the hair gets pulled back or it's like super tight somehow. So one of the things that I do is, I was doing this for you a little bit last week, is when I start a sketch, I keep my shape super loose. I start with center lines. I think about body shapes. I think about how the waist connects in here. I'm drawing through my shape. I'm thinking about how the hips come in like this, how the legs might join up here. And I try to get that construction. One of the grandmas I was drawing was sort of this heavy set, large grandma with really truncated legs the other day with a large upper torso. So I was doing this type of thing. And then I was coming in and was giving her these little like feet like this, a kneecap here. So you'll notice one thing I do with feet all the time, just to point this out, when I land feet, I think of it like this. This is how it was taught to me by character designer Chris Aguirre. You land feet down, they hit the ground. You have a foot that comes out here and you come out like that. Feet land in what we call a Y pose. Let me hit some of the lights because it's so bright and reflective up there that you can't even see my drawing. Let me hit a couple lights. See if that's a little bit easier.
For an assignment, did you want us to like create different characters, create one and then use that character?
I'm going to give you the option. So that's a great question. Sophia's question is, do I want you to create one character? Do I want you to do variants? Whatever you're comfortable with. This is a basic class. This is to expose you to parts of art that deal with drawing related to the entertainment or fields of career pathways. So if you want, what I'm going to do here for an example is show you how I start with one character and then how I might take that design and then how I model off of that character and go into another design. So here I'm just doing a basic body shape. Let me go ahead and fix this. So real quick, what I was saying, hold on 1 minute here. My eraser tool is not working. There's a different eraser on here. There it goes. So I just want to show you how I work and what I do and why I try to push this. So what I was saying about the feet really quick is your feet land like this and they land and they hit out. Students love to do this. I don't know why. Characters don't stand like that. They don't stand at a Y. One of these feet need to come a little bit forward like this. And if you do that, it's going to give you the understanding of how characters interact with a plane. And here's the other thing you need to remember too. Underneath this, you have a grid and characters stand on that grid. So when somebody is standing right here, you actually have, not to get into construction, but it relates to it. You have a center line where the heel of the foot hits and where the front of the foot hits like this. If you think about that, then you get the shape in there, then everything's easy. You can draw a foot, you can draw anything that you want based off of part of that construction that comes in there. Okay. All right. So back to this. So I'm just sketching in grandma shapes, bodies in here. So I'm going for something a little bit different that's a little bit wider. I might widen that leg a little bit more. I'm going to come in here. Remember, I was talking about the arms. Always try to break the arms away from the body. So one thing that you can do with that is you have characters grabbing, holding, and carrying stuff. So here I might have a character and she's got a cane. So I'm working on this older woman. Excuse me, my Cintiq is bouncing everywhere. Let me get this in. So there's a character that might have a cane. So let me grab this lady, bring her over here. So it's up to you. If you want to develop, you'll see where I'm going with this in just 1 minute. I just want to show you part of my construction and how I get to where I'm going. So now I have a lady, she's got really thick arms and they're very short. Then she's got these sort of like pudgy hands. Maybe I wrap her hand. Maybe she's carrying a bag like she was out shopping or something. So it's funny. You want, in order to break the arms and the hands out, you have to give the character something that they could use, you know? So that's helpful to think about where the character might have been in terms of what they're doing, where they're walking. And I'm not getting into outfit or any type of designs like that. Maybe this lady's walking, her other arm's going to connect up here. I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to have her on her phone. So she's one of those people. You love the people that FaceTime while they walk. They're like doing direct FaceTime or they're talking. My pet peeve that drives me nuts is I'm at the gym and there's a guy next to me working out and he goes, "Oh yeah, I totally know. We should sell that. Let's go ahead. Let's do that in the mall." Dude, in a public place. Why are you screaming and yelling to a business deal here? One of the faces I was doing with a lady was a very round squashed face like this. And then I pulled her hair out like this and then gave her long, like folding hair like this. I usually don't even get into the face until later. I just think about part of the movement of the shape, the form of the body. I get that construction. So, and if you look at this, you'll even notice the fact I'm dividing up shapes and I'm going into there. You see that construction, how it's just like another version of the wooden mannequin to me. And I even treat, the hands and stuff that same way. And maybe I'm just going to squeeze her phone in there. Later on, if I want to come in there, I can wrap a thumb in there. I can curve fingers around this like this and get a more developed hand. But I'm starting with something basic in terms of the construction. To me, that's important. Like rule number 1 is getting that construction in there and then looking at what I did. Okay. All right. So here, let me finish this last lines. I'm trying to darken the lines a little bit so they pop up a little bit more. Let me do one more character here. I'm going to do maybe a skinny, frumpy lady with a big butt. So I'm going to have a character that comes down with a dress like this. Maybe the dress hangs forward. So inside here, I'm going to sketch idea for the hips. Bring one leg down into here. And now I'm going to stretch it a little bit more and do a thick and thin. So this is what I call a taper. It's quite nice. When you take a character, you start to taper from thick to thin. But again, I'm back to that construction that's in here. That construction is pivotal to me. Some of you really were struggling on that torso, right? Now you got to really try to get in there and get that torso to feel. God, our monitors suck in here. Like, I guess you can see that. You don't see all the lines. On the video online, you get to see almost everything. It's just a huge difference. This lady, I might have her arm coming down. She has a hand on her hip here, like this. And maybe her arm comes in, also tapers in like that. And then for her, maybe she's a little bit taller and thinner. Let me think of a grandma face I did. Grandma faces tend to be squashed. Maybe I have her head come back a little bit more. This. So I'm rotating that shape ball. That's where her eyes would be, ears would be in here, and then maybe her hair comes back here. Again, I've noticed that hair on older women, they tend to have a lot of hair. They don't have the problems that men have. I've been pretty lucky. I haven't lost hair, and my hair hasn't really changed too much color either. My brother's 7 years younger than me, and his hair is already getting gray. And every time I see him, he goes, "Dude, you're dyeing your hair." I'm like, "I'm not." I'm like, "I got a couple gray hairs coming in, but I'm not like, like buying the black dye and putting the ink in it or anything." And he goes, "No." He goes, "I know you got to be doing that." I'm like, "Nope. I said, the difference is the way we handle stress. And he's all, what do you mean? And I go to the gym, you eat food and don't take care of yourself. And that's why, you know.
Like if we're gonna do the gesture and expression sheets, can it be characters that we've already made or?
Absolutely. Okay. I'm totally fine with that. Maybe she's pointing at something. I don't know. Finger like this. Okay. So I just do that loose. Okay. So here's what I do. There are a couple characters I just did really fast, right? Here comes the fun part that I wanted to talk about is I take the characters that I've done and I stack them like this next to each other. Oh, hold on a minute. I didn't realize they're that big. What is this layer? I don't know why that layer's in there. Let me delete it. One second. Okay, why is it not transforming? Select, where is it? Oh, duh. I know that. I'm just not paying attention. There we go. So I'm going to hit transform. I'm going to hold down. You know what's funny? I have an older version of Photoshop at home, and they changed the stupid keys. Like when you go to transform, it used to be shift, and now it's command. And then it went back to control. I'm like, come on, Photoshop, just keep it the same. Or I keep the scale the same. There we go. That looks pretty good. And take this, move this down about there. Okay, so what I do is I get my characters like this, and I take a look at that character, and now this is where the squash and stretch starts to happen, is I can put in the details there. The details are the easy stuff. As long as I have the construction, look at the, oops, look at my construction in here. What's going on? Brush. There it is. Stop drawing for a minute. I have, look at the hips. I have the hips here. I have the torso in here like that. Can you feel it? It's in there. That construction is in there. Now, when I come to here, this is where I start pushing shapes. I start thinking, what if this lady's torso was in here? And what if it's thinner? What if her back curved more? What if this came down and what if she had wider hips? But try to keep it in proportion. So I draw a little line going across like this. So what if I squash her out? What if I really make this? I come in and I erase and I go, what if I make her really a lot thinner here and her arms shorter? And then when I get down to here, maybe this is where her hips are. So now I'm really starting to push these shapes a little bit more. What if I push her neck out a little bit more this way? And then that squash and stretch of her face, what if I bring that back of the head this way? And then I bring her chin out a little bit more like this. And then what if I pull her hair and really push out that shape? Do you see what's happening now to the shape of the character? You see the difference in the changes? Look at my standard character, which was just basically my mannequin of an old lady, right? Now, look at the squash and stretch that's happening here. So what if I come in here? What if she really does have a backside like this? One of my buddies is Cuban, okay? And he talks about, he goes, whenever I visit family, he goes, Cuban women have like the curviest butts in the world. He's like, they just, boom, they pounce out in their large butts. It's the same thing with like some men from other cultures have broad upper shoulders. Some people have skinny legs. It's the same reason why people in China, average height is like 5'4" for a man. They're smaller people, right? So people have all these body differences, right? So I try to look for those differences, and then I try to figure out how can I squash and stretch a character, and what is it I need to do to get them to be more defined? How can I stretch the shape and the form? So now I took the character that I already had and look at what I've done in terms of angling that back and changing a little bit for design. Okay. And that was just a quick sketch, right? So this is why this stuff here can be loose. It doesn't have to be super done. Some of you are going to do something, and I'm going to show you something that some of you guys are going to start to do. I know this doesn't even show on the monitor. Let me go in and hit shift. Oh, come on. What's going on with Photoshop, man? I can't even use shift anymore. It doesn't work. And here, hold on. I got to go back to ruler. like every Photoshop, you hold shift and it makes a straight line. Someone changed the hotkeys. So you could do a whole page like this. My job is just to go in there and produce these variants. And another thing that I do, nobody in this class should be doing this. Hold on, I need to adjust the projector. The projector is so bad, you can't even see my lines show up on there. They stay super rough. I need to go in here and adjust the contrast because something's wrong with it. Could be the bulb going out. Give me a second. Then go to picture. Get a contrast. There we go. Get a little bit more of the line in there. Okay. Cool. The other one looks fine. Something with this monitor for some reason. Let me hit menu and get out of that real quick. Okay. All right. All right. That's a little bit better. Okay. Now you can see, but it's leaving out the white, which is weird. Okay. There we go. So then I'll take another look at this character and I'll do it again. So now what if I do something different? What if I don't curve the back? What if I have the front of the shoulders like this? What if I give her a belly like this? More of a sway in there. So there's a center line that comes down. Maybe she has more of a belly. And then look at her pelvic bones in here. So then maybe she has a leg that comes down sort of like this. Boom. Maybe one of her legs hits here. And then maybe this leg curves in a little bit more like so. So now I'm bending out part of that torso shape. So her torso is still in here. See, it's right there. Do you see it? Construction, the arms are still in there. I've just now changed it. I'm pushing her body shape. I'm pushing the leg shapes. I'm getting a lot more curve in there. Okay, in that construction. And then I'll come back into the arms. I'll do the same thing. What if I take the arms and make them thinner now? What if her arms are thinner and they get more of a taper feel? And then these come back and they taper back into here. And then I come out and I get the hand in here. If you want to do a simple hand, just do this. Hands super simple. Doing ellipse, go like this, come like that. That's it. Drawn from another angle. This is that hand again, turned. It's just half of a shape like this. See a little bit of the top part. See that side part. Another angle of that hand would be like this. Straight line, wrap around. And then this comes up, it curves like this. The reason why we use that as a hand, it's a great shape, is because all you have to do is come into that and you put a triangle wedge here. And that represents the knuckle. And then you get the thumb in there. And then you come in here and you divide this up. Then you get fingers in there like this. See, it's literally that easy. And then boom, you get a hand. It's in like more of a construction. So that's a pretty simple, easy way to get that hand and feet in there. Okay, hold on. Let me keep drawing on her. Okay, now what if I come in here and I like that pinch shape? What if I do the same thing with the neck? What if I pinch her like this? She's old, right? All people have that sagging vertebrae. Maybe her breasts start to sag a little bit too. So I get this curve of her body shape changing. She has this belly. What if she wears pants low? So she has her pants wrapping around like this. Then I could come back in and do the folds a minute later. Then I'm going to come up here. Maybe to push the shape, what if I bring her chin right up to the edge here like this? And then what if I push her head shape back more like this? So what if I pull that in and then I have this and then I could come back into here like this. And then maybe her hair just dangles straight down like this, a little bit of curve. So I'm always trying to figure out how to push my shapes a little bit more on a character. And then the same thing here. I'm going to give her that arm again, coming out a little bit. So I'm always thinking of this. If there's an insertion point there, there's an insertion point there. Does that make sense? I have an insertion point here for that leg. I have the hips, even if they're distorted, the insertion point is here on the other side, right? As long as you can see those insertion points, you're good to go. So now as I come back to blue in here, maybe here I'm going to put her arm. Actually, I don't like that arm being up like that. Let me change it. Let me go back. I want to draw through, bring her arm down to about here, then bring her arm at an angle. Now bring her hand down at an angle like this. And I'm going to try to angle the cane in a different direction. But if the cane comes like this and angles like this. Okay, so do you see that variant that I just did of that body shape that's in there? Okay, and then look at the progression. See where I started, see where I landed second, see where I went third. Okay, so I could even do another pass if I want. I could fill up the whole page of doing these variants. What I'm doing right now is the term squashing and stretching. I'm pushing and pulling the facets of the body. Then later on, what I like to do is this. I'm going to jump ahead because this is a demo. Let's say I really like that face. I'm going to bring that face over. And let's say I'm going to make it a little bit larger. Uh-oh. Okay, it did that thing where it changed the color again. It did happen to me the other day in my class. Does anyone know how to undo this? I just hit a button and it changed from blue to dark blue. And it's a command. I don't know what it is. There it is. Was it 3? Was it 4? And it drives me insane because now it completely changes the look of my line. And I was hitting Command E. Maybe I hit 3. So 3 change. I don't know what Command 3 does. And here's the weird thing. This is what sucks. Is when you go here under Window and you go to History, it usually doesn't show in the history.
If you look at the tab at the top where it says Untitled 1, whenever you press that button, it's changing it from red to black to RGB.
Is that what it's doing?
Yeah. If you press that button, it keeps changing it.
So it did. But see, here's the thing that I don't get. I'm still in RGB. And look at the color I'm at. The color I'm at right here is not, that's navy blue. Look at that blue. That blue, if I color swab that, watch it jump. See, it's not the same color. Try what? Okay, you said color file under image. Oh, it did do that. So, but now it made it harder to see though. That's weird. See, it made all the characters lighter. You guys, what's funny is, hold on a minute. I got to fix this monitor. Look at how the other monitor shows. Look at how bad this monitor is. Look at the night and day difference of the sketches. It's like hugely different. I can't figure out what it is. Or maybe that contrast means, oh, there it goes. Maybe it was up too high. There it goes. Now you can see the sketches better. Okay, yay. Yay, now I can see a drawing finally on that monitor. Okay, I guess that's what it was. But it still came out light. I wasn't drawing that light, but that's fine. I'll stay with it. As long as I get my blue back, I got my blue back. Okay, all right. So what I was doing is I was pasting the face. So I'll take a face like this, and I learned to do this traditionally. So there's nothing wrong with that. Paste a face like that. I do this with the body too. And what I'll do is I dull that down, and then I come into that. I draw on top of it with another layer. And now this is where I start to carve into what I call detail. So this is where I'll come in here and I do stuff like this. I look at the center line of my, hold on, what's going on? Is that pure? Something else happened too. Hold on, back to blue, pure blue. Something else happened. What is it? Image, mode, let me check. RGB, let's go to 16-bit. Maybe that was, yeah, that's much better. Okay, maybe that was it. Hold on a minute, let me start over. Okay, good, I think we're back to normal. Tech issues. Okay, so what I do is I take that outline right there and I have it on this layer. I've dropped it down. I usually do this with a blue pencil in my sketchbook. I just sketch it really light. And this is how animators and character designers work. You have to have an undersketch. I come back onto this drawing now, and then I go, okay, here's the center line. So her nose, don't ask me why. Sometimes I like to start with noses. They're easy. Her nose, women's noses tend to be very small. Like this, I might have a little teeny nose. I might start with features that someone elderly would have. So I'm going to put glasses on her. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to put a couple lines across. I'm going to put glasses to go from end to end. Okay. And then I'm going to come down off of here. Next thing I do is I tend to go into the eyes. So I'm going to come into here. I start with a round structure first. I then wrap that structure with an eyelid. Then I might come up to the back, bring up the whole eye. I might come in here, put a little dot, figure out what the eye is going to look like. Let me do that same thing probably on this side, get a little dot, come in here, get this line going over like this. I'm going to throw in a couple eyebrows coming off of her like this. So now I start going into the detail of my character. I have these glasses up here. Here, the ears between the direction of the eyes and the nose. So if you go like this and look at the scale of your face, the eyes and the nose is exactly where the ear lands in. So I sketch in, she has a really small ear. Because of that, I'm going to sketch that in. I love older women always wear earrings. They always have some type of earring in. Then I'm going to come in here. They tend to have wrinkles. They have wrinkles under the eyes, but the glasses blocks out a little bit. Next place they have wrinkles is from the nose. So they have wrinkles that come down like this. I'm going to come in here and give her like her upper little thingy, little philtrum there. Let me round this here. Okay. As I bring this down, they have little curves. Women that are older tend to have little chins like this. Okay. I might round off her face a little bit more. I might tuck this in. I might then throw some hair in here. Maybe your hair is coming up. There's a center of the hair like that. So I'm really pushing that shape back there. Do you feel the stretch happening in there? That's okay. It's a rough. Remember, it's just a drawing. It's not like you're submitting this to, you know, a magazine or something that dictates your life. It's just a rough sketch. It's okay to have rough sketches go wrong. It's okay to have things not look right in it. It's part of the process of developing and figuring out shapes of characters. Maybe I'll curve the eyelids a little bit more, start to get that shape of her face. Maybe older people tend to have other chins. So they have like one chin there, and then she might have another chin like this. And then as I curve that neck back down, then I might come in and then curve that back down into her frame. Okay, like so. Get a couple more pronounced wrinkles on the side here, and voila. There's sketch for grandma number one. Okay, but look, that drawing did not materialize without the structure underneath. Does that make sense? Oh, I forgot one thing. I always do this. Technically, my mom had a pair of glasses. She would sit them on her nose and had a rubber brim, and they would just hold there without the side rails. But what I usually do if I do glasses, I put a little notch on here, and then I come in and I draw where the glasses land on the eyes. And then on this side, I have to sketch that in very lightly to make sure it makes sense. Okay, so there's grandma number one, right? That's my first version. So what I do is I come over, I put that to the side. Who created the original shape underneath? I did. The shape belongs to me, right? So I could come back in here, create layers are free, right? I know you guys are drawing traditionally, but you can still do the same thing. I might come in and do another version. What if on this version, I give, here's my center line. What if I take the nose of grandma here? What if I make it a little wider? So what if it comes out and it gets a little bit wider here and it's a little larger? So maybe it pops up a little bit more. Then I'm going to curve that back. And then where it comes back to here, I'm going to give her a couple more pronounced wrinkles like this in the face. And then I'm going to make the eyes a little bit larger. So here are the eyes now. They're a little bit larger. Always start with the eyeball, because what happens on the eyeball is this. You have a rounded eyeball. The eyelid has to wrap over that. You have to see that shape and form there. Do you see that? And then technically, when it wraps over, the lower, you have your tear duct right there. And then you get that little curve in there. That's why, if you didn't know this, that's why historically people that live in colder climates have their eyes tend to be a little bit more squashed. So people that live in parts of Asia, and if you continue up to like parts of Alaska and you look at the Inuit, Eskimos, and you have people that are even more like Native American blood, they tend to get more squashed eyes because their eye covers their tear duct. Your tear duct's right there in the corner. And by doing that, it helps you. So I learned that in hanging out with a couple character designers who would talk about that. Then I get the eyelids coming in there. Then when I do the eye is really simple. You have two options you can do. You can do a little pupil like this, and you can highlight a pupil like this and get a little white highlight in the middle. That would totally work. Or another option I like to do is I get, remember, you have the iris. So you have this area around the eye. I still leave a little highlight in the eye like that. But then what I do is I get a gradient that goes like this. I go really lightly from dark to light, and I fade that off. See how realistic that eye looks? Very effectively. If you get that little iris in there like this, you get that little fade off, a gradient, and then you get the highlight on the eye. So that's one way I do eyes and characters, and it works quite effectively. So now on this grandma, let's come in here. Let me wrap her eyelids around the eyes a little. And I'm going to make her eyes here a lot longer and thinner. So now I'm going to make them a little shorter and fatter. So maybe I'll wrap that coming back this way. And hold on a minute. Let me get it centered. And then I'm going to come in here, wrap this up to here. The other thing I left off of this grandma, which I shouldn't have done, I left off the eyebrows. The eyebrows are really important to show how a character feels, because when the eyebrows point downward, it indicates that a character is angry or frustrated. When eyebrows are lightly curved, they're either popping their eyes up or they're somewhat happy. Okay, so now as I do that, this time I'm going to do something different. I'm going to pronounce a little bit of a curve in her philtrum. Where philtrum's that little bend right here in your lips. You can put your finger in it. Go like that, touch it, and you'll feel that little curve spot, okay, on your face. And then I'm going to come in here, put her lips like this, like that. Then I just put the indication over her lower lip. So now I'm changing grandma's face quite a bit. Let me come in here. Let's get an eye in here. So I put a little bit of a dark highlight there. I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight there. Let me get this other curve coming in there, wrap that around. Let's get the other eye in there a little bit. That eye got a little bit bigger. That's okay. I'm going to put some eyelashes on her. Now, I didn't put any other details. I didn't put glasses on this grandma, but I'm going to now. So I'm going to put the bridge of the frame right here, resting on her eyes, and I'm going to give her a large rounded set, because there are what I call visual identifiers in a design that make a character feel older. And one of the identifiers on women is women have bad eyesight. They just do. Unless you're like my wife and you have bat radar. She could like see at night. I don't know how she could see at night. But when women get older, so men tend to lose vision first, and then women tend to get worse vision a little bit later on in life. Okay. So here's my grandma. I'm going to give her a more pronounced chin there. Might give her another second chin in there. I'm going to bring her neck down into about the same pose. Okay. And let me come from the eyes. And this time, let me get her ear in here. The glasses hanging out just a little bit. And now I'm going to change her hair. I'm going to pronounce her hair down and out back to here like this. So again, this is how we squash and stretch something. I'm taking originals that I've done and I modify it. Get a curve in her hair. Let me round this up to the front, wrap over her like this. I want to get more of a curve coming in here. And same thing here. Get those lines in there. There. Okay. So, oops. Let me zoom out. So let me erase this guy here. So there is another sketch. That's another variant. Look at the differences in grandma faces, right? It's funny because I remember last night when I was showing work, so one of my students asked a question. I think it was John. He asked a question and said, how did you redraw, like you do a thumbnail, how did you redraw it and go to the environment? Did you Xerox it? And I was like, no, we redrew it. We didn't have, Xerox machines were like 50 cents or $1 each in the beginning in the 80s, into the 90s. We would just redraw it. And I know students are like, what do you mean? I couldn't scan it? I couldn't do this? No, we just redrew it. You just look at it and redraw it. It takes a couple seconds. If you do, no offense, but if you don't whine about it, you just do it, you'd be amazed. You get it done in like a couple seconds. Okay. So this is how I come up with facial variants. when I do character stuff. I take a core shape that I really like. The core shape has all the construction. The core shape has the center lines that come down. They allow me to see the placement of the eyes, the brow, the nose, and I could keep just doing version after version. You know, I could come in here. I might decide, what if grandma is from the Middle East? There's nothing wrong with this, but Middle Eastern people have big noses. I can give her a huge nose. I can give her shorter lips. I can give her more. So I could go in there and start doing another variant. Okay. So I just wanted to show you that process. This is what I wanted you to do this week, is try to create one design in a rough shape, squash it, stretch it, see what you come up with. Then take some of the different faces, create faces off of that construction, then go back and do the same thing with the body. So let me do a body version right now. Okay, 1 second here. Let me take that grandma. Let me put her, she's merged. Let me merge these layers. There we go, they're merged. Come on. Sorry, I'm getting a lag in Photoshop. What did I just do? I framed something. Let me just Command Z, go back. There, it's gone. Make sure these are the same. I'm hitting hotkeys and then the hotkeys don't go. So let me grab grandma there, put her up there. And by the way, I don't like the grandma with the round glasses. It didn't come out. She looks too young. Doesn't look more like a grandma. So I would go in and I would modify that again. Nothing wrong with that. Let me turn this off. So here's how I treat bodies. I actually like this one better. I like that pose. Hold on. I'm on lasso and it's stuck. Click off of it. Deselect. God, what's going on in this version of Photoshop? It's going into negative, not even selection. Copy. So it goes down here. Copy, paste. So let's say I like that head right there. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to move the body shape over to there. I'm going to hold in proportion. That's not bad. I might want to make her a little bit wider. I might make her a teeny bit more like this. That's great. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing now with the body. I'm going to take the body. I'm going to drop this down very light. Now I'm going to start to draw on grandma and see what I come up with. Okay, so I look at that construction. And here's the great thing. Remember, we talked a little bit in this class about drapery, right? Very quickly. Now I get to apply all that. I have the core construction of grandma right here. So if I look at this, I'm now going to come onto this and start sketching a couple versions. I create another layer here, and I'm going to think about what grandmas wear. Grandmas love color and they love fluffy stuff. So what I might do on this, let's start here. I noticed when I was gathering some reference, make sure, let me zoom in for a minute. Grandmas love, like they have collars like this. They have collars to wrap around them like this, and they have these fluffy curls in them like this. Like that, and then just put a couple of lines in there. Okay. Just real quick while we're all talking and I'm working on this, what are other things that grandmas have? Grandmas love vests. Don't ask me why. If there's a vest shortage in the United States and they all had to go out and buy vests, they love wearing vests. So I might come in here, sketch a vest that's hanging. This fabric comes down here. I might pinch it right here. I might go over her hip a little bit where her hand is. Part of that vest might end about there. And then I might wrap around that shape and form, bring that vest there, which means the other side of the vest is going to be open here. It's going to hang down. It's going to come down to about there. Because if I draw through that shape, it's going to look something like that. Does that make sense? That's how I get the construction of the fabric overlapping the feel of my grandma. I'm keeping that character construction in there. Grandma's, when I would go visit my mom, she was in a retirement home, right? And one of the things I always looked for was I look at the clothing. Another thing that grandmas do, they're super paranoid about losing like their pants. So they always like have their pants up higher. So I'm going to raise her pants up a little bit more. Maybe I'll put a little belt buckle, maybe a little strap there. So then she has this vest on, which means underneath here, she's going to have a shirt that tucks in. You don't see much of the shirt unless I shorten the vest. So I might come in here. Let's do that. But if I take that angle of the vest, and I'm going to start the vest now back in here instead, bring it down and curve it this way. So now we'll see more of the belt buckle Grandma has on. And then now I can see more of the shirt. So now I can fit little buttons. Oops. I meant to do that with a smaller brush. There, now I have some buttons on there, and then I can see the vest. And then I also have the thickness of the vest too. The vest is going to hang out here. I should be able to see that thickness. Another thing that vests have pockets in them. They all have pockets. So I might get a pocket here stretched in there, and I get that in there. Then I'm going to come in here, try to get there, have stitched center lines that go down the middle to come up. So I put a little stitched line. I have the edge to that vest in here, have little seamed edges. So I sketch that in there. It gives it a little bit more visual weight, makes it pop out. So now Grandma's got a vest, right? What about the pants? So maybe Grandma has these pants, they have a pocket on the front. So I'm going to have a stitched line that runs down the side of them like this. So I put a little line here, represents like a, actually, hold on, that's the front line. Let me redo this. I'm distorting the legs here quite a bit. That would be the front mass line to like the knee. So as part of that stitch line might come, we do it like this. We have a point of tension coming from the crotch with fabric like this. And then fabric's going to come up to here. We have another point of tension over the top of that leg where it connects up and goes over the butt. Fabric's going to come down. The fabric's going to drape off of, that's where we get that sort of Z fold coming down here. Grandma's pants tend to be a little bit baggy. So if I get that Z fold in here, this fabric's going to go along her leg, wrap around that outside, come there, come in there. When it gets down to here, it's going to have maybe a fold in the pants like this. So I get that fold in the pants. And as I come up, I go over those bumps. I come back up to the part of the leg. Okay. Grandma might have a pocket in her little pants here. Maybe I see part of that pocket sketched. Some pockets have like the little sewing in stitches on them like that. So I get that in there. Okay. Grandma's shoes. Maybe Grandma's foot fits in and she has those like old people love simple slip-ons. They don't wear high heels unless they're going somewhere special. So Grandma might just have a real simple slip-on shoe like that. Then I'm going to come down here, do the same thing. Here's the kneecap. There's part of that side stitching. It goes along the side here. Comes up there. I might have a little bit of a fabric fold or bend. Come down and hit that kneecap. It's going to pinch up. And I get the fabric Z folds. I have fabric coming over that ankle. It wraps around the back side here. Okay. I get that. And then I have the front of that same type of low heel shoe. Pinches to the front like this. I realize that might be a little too thin, but that's okay for now. So voila, that might be outfit number one for me right there with jeans and some type of tuck shirt. So let's say I pull this outfit to the side. Let's do another outfit. Why not? Outfits are free. Layers are free, right? You can just do the rough sketch of Grandma's body real quick. What if I give Grandma a summer dress? So what if she has, let's do that. Let me put another layer here. What if she has pearls and necklaces around her? Excuse me, like a pearl-based large necklace around her. And then what if she has sleeves this time? What if the sleeves come down and then when the sleeves hit here, they're a flower pattern like this. So now the sleeves wrap around like that and they come in. When this comes up here, that's hanging off the arm, right? So this fabric, that's a point of tension. The fabric sort of hangs where you might have a light fold there. But when this fabric comes back in here, it's going to fold and crease, especially when we hit part of the armpit right there. Okay, so I'm thinking about that. How does the fabric wrap over that the core body of Grandma in there, right? And then I actually like this. It was a happy accident. What if she has this necklace on and then she has a collared shirt underneath? See that like end sticking out there? I might wrap around a collar, come here and wrap that around that side. That's sort of cool. It wraps around part of Grandma with that big necklace in there, okay? But this is a flower dress. So I look at that fold, that's pinching in there, and then I might see a little bit of the fold back. Grandma's elbow might be here pronounced, might come down to her forearm. I'm not worried about hand detail right now. I'm just going to put a basic shape in there. So now when I come down, I am worried about the summer dress. Here's a major point of tension right here. That dress is hanging off right here. I have two ways that fabric can fold. The fabric could go, it could sort of bind up and go this way and then drop off of grandma's hip, sort of like that. Or the fabric could come up to this point, sort of hit here, start to wrap a little there, then wrap a little bit more in the back. And I might have a bunch up of the fabric since it's going over body. I like that because I want there to be a hang from this point right here. See the edge of the rib cage? The fabric's going to hang back off of this, come back down, maybe like this, and then the fabric will start to level out, coming down to the rest of the dress, if that makes sense. So I'm going to curve that line back in. So this overlaps a little bit more. And then as I start to come up here, let me see what else. I have a point of tension there. So there might be a little curve or two off the fabric. So then I have this dress that comes in. Now, most dresses some of them have a tie strap around areas, some don't. Some dresses have this thing where they have like a little hole here, and it's a little thing like this. And what it is you then have a little knot, and they just tie a little thing like this into the fabric. It's sort of built in. So I sort of like that in there. Okay, so as the fabric wraps over grandma, I bring that fabric off of her butt, and it's going to hang down like this. And it's going to hang down until I hit the bottom part of the character. So when it hangs down here, now I need to think about how the fabric's going to hang here like this, and it's going to overlap. It's going to tuck back around like that. And then this fabric now here, again, is going to come up her leg a little bit, in the dress will be a little point of tension right there, but not much. It's not going to wrap over the whole leg, right? But then the fabric might continue to wrap, come this way, and it might hang forward a little bit where I could see that loop. I might be able to see underneath it. So now I'm going to have the fabric hanging from there. I might have a little bit of that fabric hanging from there, curving her body. Let's go ahead. Let's throw grandma's feet coming in. Since I was doing this last night, the shape is still stuck in my head where I was drawing a grandma with flip-flops. So I drew a grandma like this, and I picked that point. I drew the base of the shoe, which would be the flip-flop. I picked that point where her toe would be, and I drew a loop coming this way, and I drew a loop coming over that way, and then put the flip-flop in there. We're like hold on, I do the loops really large. Let me do that again. Actually, let's give her slippers. Same thing. Let's give looped slippers like this, hang off the back, bring grandma's foot in the back like that. There, she has some slippers. Do the same thing here. And just put a large loop coming over, bring that toe in there like this. Okay. And bring the edge, the slipper out a little bit more. There, connect that in like that. Voila. Okay. So now when I think I'm done with her, I'm not, because there's one or two other details I want to put. Number one, I'm going to have this is going to hang and be pinched right there. That same sort of floral wrap there. So I'm going to come in here, get some of that, sketch in that shape of that ellipse. You see that underlined sketch I just put in there? Then I come in and then I put the wave in there. And then I can connect the hands in there. I need to feel that structure. And then I could come in here, start to address grandma's hand. And remember, I'm not worried about fingers right now. I'm just doing the base construction. And then I get that part of her dress in there. I get that kink in part of her arm with the fabric, and then wrap that around back in there. Okay, matching. Now, one things I also noticed about grandma would be shapes in the dress. I can throw shapes in there like this. What if I give grandma, what if she has a stripe? I'm going to do this on another layer to show you the difference, because this accentuates the figure. What if grandma's dress has stripes? The stripe might hang down to here, might hang there, and then bunch in, come down like this, and that might be a striped dress. Actually, I don't like putting vertical stripes on women because they're a lot harder to do, and sometimes they get confused with fabric. but I could stripe her dress. Let's just take a look at it. If I did that, I'm going over the folds. So again, everything is coming back to that structure. You need to be able to have an idea of form and structure. And some of you really started to blow chunks on drawing the structure of the mannequin. You started to leave the mannequin structure. You're missing up proportions of the torso and the lower section. So if you're going to characters and you're not mimicking that proportion correctly, you're going to have a really hard time then going into arms and fabric and other detail, because it all works consistent. Okay, so let me get there. So there was sort of vertical fabric. Let's zoom out. When we look at grandma, that's not bad. It goes in a flow. So that's one option I could do. What's another option that grandmas have in terms of dresses? Let's go back. Dots, flower patterns. That's great. Dots are fantastic. Ask me why. Grandmas love like dots of color and everything. I love grandmas. They're innocent. But I will tell you this, having taken care of my mom in a facility, grandmas become evil. I've seen my mom become, God bless her soul, become an evil woman. And it's when she got a UTI infection. And when women get a UTI infection, they change, and it changes your brain because your blood gets infected and then your brain works differently. And one time my mom was upstairs. She wouldn't go to her floor, and she went upstairs, and the facility called me. I was, 10 minutes away. So I drove over there and I go up there. Well, Mom, what's going on? And there's this wonderful little Filipino nurse named Alice that we know. And I'm like, Mom, what are you doing? And she's walking upstairs on the 5th floor. I'm like, you're on the 3rd floor. Let's go downstairs. And she goes, and she looks at me and she goes, Alice is trying to lock me up and put me in the dungeon. And I'm like, what? I'm like, Alice is the nurse helper. She's not trying to, she goes, no, I know what she's doing. She's one of those sneaky little, and she's one of those sneaky Filipino ladies. I'm like, sorry, Alice, and I knew my mom had a UTI right there because she wasn't thinking. And then my mom goes, they're trying to get in my checkbook and they're trying to steal stuff from me. And that's the UTI infection magnifying this paranoia because it plays on the brain. So it's funny because that is a change that does happen. And it would sort of crack me up because I call my brother and he'd be like, oh no, what's Mom doing? And our mom was like 99% of the time fine until she got a UTI infection, or when elderly people get a little sick, it also messes with them and they get a thing called sundowners where they get confused about what time of day and where they're at and stuff like that. So good times. So dots are great because, see, I want the dots to go with the form. And this is what I mean. If I have a dot that goes, I have the form of the body goes this way, right? Where else is the form of the body, folks? We have the X and Y and Z axes. I have another part of the form of the body that goes this way, right? So do not do this. I have a student that'll come in and they're going to put a polka dot right there, which isn't bad. But I need a polka dot that wraps over the shape. So if I have a line that comes this way, I want my oval to start to turn a little bit going on that line of action, if that makes sense. But then I had a line of action coming in here. So it's in my best interest to then put a polka dot being right there. Does that make sense? That polka dot is adhering to a line of action going this way and a line of action going that way. That's important to remember. You want your dots or your patterns to support the form of the body underneath, which is the construction. Back to that golden term with construction. And by the way, I was even on a show once where I did a character, and then they wanted me to go in and indicate the anatomy of the character so they could model the character and have a brief understanding of, like, even grandmas, even though they probably don't work out much, they still have a deltoid, they still have a bicep, they still have an arm with a little bit of a, of other little muscles in there. And you need to have that structure comes back to, even if you know anything about our industry, with when you draw a character in 2D, it has to translate to 3D. So then it can be modeled. So then it can be animated properly. And that is something else that designers have to be aware of. So as I come back on here and start putting polka dots, now check this out. What if I did this? Ooh, let's get complicated. Oops, wrong color. Let's go back to blue. What if I put a polka dot wrapping over that fold? Oh yeah, look at that. That would happen, right? If I have a round polka dot, it's going to hit that curve of that fabric and it's going to round this way. And then it's going to go down and tuck. I might only see part of that rounding. And then I might have another part. I might have a large polka dot being there. And then it might shift in the fabric. I might see the other part of the polka dot right there. It makes sense because your brain is a little computer, right? Your brain looks at stuff like this and it pays attention to detail. And if your brain looks at something and goes, nah, that's not possible. That's when your brain looks at your artwork and goes, oh, there's a problem with it. Nope, that doesn't look convincing. Nope, the perspective's off. Your brain notices these little changes. Your goal is to be able to get in there. And by the way, I stacked too many polka dots there. Maybe if I have one up here, then I might have one coming up over here. Maybe it wraps a little down there. And maybe I have another polka dot on the arm. Maybe I get a smaller one contorted there, a large one here, one up there, one in the middle that's smaller. And if I start to look and zoom out of Grandma, voila, she starts to get a polka dot dressed element. Now I'm looking at that. What's one thing you notice in terms of design that's happening to Grandma's polka dots right now? It's getting very busy, right? So if I continue to put this dress and design out Grandma in terms of her shape and form, the circles on there are all super busy because they're too close. So what does that mean? That means it would be wise of me to go back and consider enlarging the shape of the circles if she has a polka dot dress and spacing them out more accordingly, right? And then that would give me still the detail I want, but it would give a little bit of rest between that detail. Okay, so let me just come over here. The purpose of this was to show you, on top of this outfit, I'm going to take off my polka dots, but let me come back here. Let me move this outfit over this way. So I wanted to show you real quick, look at the variant changes in what we're doing here. This is what separates us out, and this is what your job is. You have to provide renditions and versions of things for art directors and designers. You have to be able to go into your sketches, do different facial contortions and squash and stretch shapes and think about body. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I did a human there. So let me sort of stack this up. I wanted you to see that progression of how I went from a basic shape, how I stretched that more, stretched it even more, how I drew on top of it, pulled out detail out of that, how I did another version of a face. And even more important than that, I go back to the outfit. There's something really cool. So what I wanted to do is, I wish I had more time to sit and draw, but I am limited to demo length here because I also wanted to do an animal for you guys today. So I'm going to take Grandma's head and put it over there. And I'll do this for clients. If I'm doing, an illustration of a story, how many people here change outfits? My daughter changes outfits like 4 times a day. I was shocked to learn that a teenage girl could change outfits that many times. She wears something to school. She comes back home. She then changes into her sweats to go work out at the gym at school. When she's done with the workout, she then changes again into her swim attire. Then she has other attire she puts on after that to come home again that covers that attire, like that keeps her warm, like a long swim parka. Then she comes back home and puts on sweats. The kid's literally changing 4 different outfits. So if you think about adding that into what old people wear, they might only wear one outfit. But what's the difference between a dress? What's the difference between having, a tucked in shirt and Levi's or casual sweats, right? You need to think about that because that does aid to the character. Okay. All right. I had other body shapes. If I wanted to do this, I would continue doing what I did here. I wanted to show you what part of my pathway and progression is when I do work. And by the way, do I do this with environments? Yes. Especially with locations, I do the same thing. I will sketch out versions of cars. I will create cars that have different feelings to them. What does a car look like that's designed for a villain versus what does a car look like that's designed for a good guy? So props work in unison in terms of good design and art direction with characters, and then those even work the same way with environments. It's all part of really solid storytelling. Okay, now I'm going to come over here. Let's do birds. I really like birds because there's a lot that we can do with birds. And I put up some really great reference for you. So what I'm going to do is on this example, I'm going to start with like a basic bird shape for what I would call like a toucan. Okay, so a toucan is basically this. It has Oops, I lost something there. My brush went away. It has a really simple head ball. Okay, I have a center line down there. So again, I'm building construction. My bird might come down. Birds tend to have a wider body, and part of that reason why we sense their body being a little bit wider is because their wings are tucked in on the side. Okay, so I'm going to start with construction like this. All right. Yeah, John, you have a question?
You made this comment about for character design and understanding like fabric, and you were saying, you know, oh, there were students that are deviating from the mannequin.
Well, they're deviating. They're losing the construction of the mannequin. So when I reviewed work on Monday in class, the purpose of the mannequin is understanding. It's not that it's a mannequin. It's the simplified structure of the human form that, like, for example, I pointed out people were drawing the torso and they were making the torso smaller than the pelvic bone. That's not correct. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. Or there were a couple students that did something totally off with like a pose, and the arms, the elbows. If you look at your elbow and stand straight up, your elbow comes down to usually the base of your rib cage. That's a proportional adjustment. So some students were missing that and making the arms too long. A couple students showed me work in class and they made the legs super short, but the torso too long. That's
so they're using
out of proportion.
So what you're talking about is you're still using the mannequin to dictate proportion, even if you're distorting the whole body.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're going to distort a basic shape without a doubt.
Okay.
So here's my, I'm going to just make a basic, simple shape here for a toucan. Okay. We have a head ball. Hold on a minute. I'm going to shrink my head ball. I have a body shape. Now, hold on. I did something in here I'm not liking when I started this. I put too much of a curve. I wanted to get a center line down like this. I went the other direction. There. Now I have some visual weight with the center line going into this way. So I have a bird. I have a center line here. I have a center line there. I have a line that comes down the middle. Oh, I might have wings in here like this. And toucans are known for having a large beak like this. And they also have a tail on them. A little bit of tail. It doesn't have to be a toucan. I'm just using that as an example. Okay, so here's the thing I get all the time. This is what illustrators do. People that are trained as illustrators who don't have that design background. They do one version of an animal and they don't do multiple versions of it. Okay, so I was trained when I left school and got my job working in animation. Actually, it was a guy named Glenn Vilp who said it to me. He came up to me and he goes, "You're an illustrator, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, I am. I went to school as an illustrator." I said, how do you know?" And he goes, "Because when you draw the human figure, you draw it in one pose and you render the heck out of it." And he goes, "You don't draw it in gesture for multiple poses." And he said this to me, and he's right. He goes, "You're not thinking about the construction of the human figure and rotating it in your head." Vilpu made a comment. He said, "One of the gifts we have as artists is being able to draw things and rotate them slightly in our head at another angle to add expression and gesture to it." And man, was he ever right, because all my poses were like stiff, stagnant, and that was part of me always over rendering. It wasn't me thinking about shape, pushing shape. And then I realized once I got more into animation, working with artists in terms of the design process, man, you have to do squash and stretch. You have to break away shape. So the biggest problem I have in the character design class, students come in, I give them an assignment to draw like a bird, and this is what they do. They take the first bird out of their head, and that's the bird that they hand to me. And I go, "No, that's just basic shapes. There's nothing even really attractive about that shape I just drew. That is a starting point for me to use and to work forward from." And some of you might know what I'm talking about. I have quite a few students that already went to some Cal States and like UCI, and you spend all this time rendering and you don't put enough time into your work learning squash and stretch and learning variation. Okay, so I take a look at my toucan here, and now I'm going to start playing with shapes. So I might start with the head ball. One of the things I start to do is I look at this and I go, okay, what if I take this? What if I bend the head this way and contort the body back? And then what if I really change that shape? What if I bring in that toucan shape here and I bring it down, and then I take that and I bring it like this and I bring it downward? Now I give them a much larger beak in here. Maybe that beak connects in here. And it's also the way too where the eyes might be. I'll sketch a placement for the eyes. That might not be the eye 100%. My goal right now is to try to get in here and squash and stretch as much as I can to see what kind of shapes I might come up with. In fact, what if I make the back of the body shape really wide like this? What if his wings are tucked in here like this? What if his chest comes into here? And then what if his other wing is landing about there? And then look at the tail. So what if his tail now, if I bring off the tail end for his feathers about there, and what if I bring in his tail like this? So I now took shapes that I had and I've squashed them and stretched them and pushed them into a different category. Okay. I mean, this is principle 101 in animation. If you ever do basic animation, you start with this. Start with a circle, right? When you go to bounce that ball, one of the first things they tell you to do, put a line around the ball of the shape and form. The next thing they tell you to do is when your ball is bouncing, your ball is going to be affected by energy and you're going to start to get this in it. You're going to get the squash and shape stretch of the ball hitting and that line contorting. Does that make sense? Because the shapes start to bend. They're not perfect circles. And then when you hit that ball on the ground the first time, it comes down and it hits. And man, when that squashes, everyone does a squash sort of like this with that line going over the top. And then you'll look at more experienced animators, but then they start to do this. They start to have a little bit of a counter angle on there, sort of like the way you get contrapost and figure drawing. You get a little bit of this angle going like this, wrapping over it. Because then what that means is that ball squashes and then comes back up. Its shape and form starts to turn and it's rotating and moving. And that movement gives it a little bit more character to the character that you're sketching and drawing. Okay. So hold on. Let me do a couple more variants of the bird here. Let's see where we go up. So let me talk real quick about visual identifiers. We talk about this a lot of times in prop and environment design. Visual identifiers are accents or details to a particular design that makes it look that way. So when I did the old lady a couple of minutes ago and did that demo, what were the visual identifiers that old people have? They have glasses, number one, right? Number two, women tend to have their hair tends to be gray. That's a visual identifier. We just see it more in color. They have posture. They have wrinkles in their eyes. What else do they have? Seventh vertical vertebrae. You know, he goes all like this. He's like, look, they get they get second and double and triple chins, right? Because their skin starts to hang. All right. Their ears droop. Ears get smaller. The face starts to droop because the muscles aren't used enough. So the skin starts to pull down. That's where you start to see years of sun abuse. Like if women have been in the sun a long time, their faces get very dried and their skin starts to hang off the end. Okay. Guys, I think this is funny. Guys go home. They don't put lotion on their skin. Women go home and put lotion on their skin because they see effect of aging around late 20s to early 30s. Women start to get wrinkled and their face starts to adjust and their skin drops. Guys don't do that. That's why when you go look at men that never hydrate their body, okay, they have all these wrinkles and like their arm is like folding off of skin. The skin starts to hang off their face because they never hydrate when they're younger, right? It's true. Okay, so you take those identifiers, the visual identifiers of a bird, it's the eye on the side of the head. It might be a little bit of a feather or the fur popping up. It might be the size of the beak. The other thing is the wings. Last visual identifier is going to be the feathers that come off of the back. Okay. So I take that list of visual identifiers. Now I come back to my character and I start playing with it. I start taking the head shapes. What happens if I take a beak on my character? What if I pinch the beak? What if I take this beak and bring it out really long and thin and do this? And then if I pinch it, we're talking about a taper. What if I pinch this here, come here, and then boom, and I drop a massive taper in it like that? Look at that. That's a pretty massive drop and a taper in there, right? Then I might come in. What if this guy has an underbite? So what if I extend that beak forward like that? And then I bring this lower part in and then bring it back down into here. Okay, what if his body's a little bit smaller? Okay, so if I squash and stretch that body shape now, and then let's come in and put his feather in here. So I'm going to come in, throw that wing in here on this side. I'm going to throw it really wide like this. It's funny. I'm always, in the back of my head, I always think of that comment that Glenn Vilppu made to me when I was younger, like you draw like an illustrator and you start drawing to like an animator. And I knew what he meant by that because it made sense to me. There, do you see how that shape is totally changed now? Look at that squash and stretch of that character. He looks almost a little too contorted by having that. So I look at that and I go, maybe the underbite isn't working there as much. In fact, one of the things I don't like is I don't like the beak shape going completely sideways. So I'm going to erase the beak and I might do this. Let me draw the head. Let me get the other eye in there. What if I come up here, take the beak shape and bring it towards me more like this? Now it's at a 3/4. So then I'm going to come in here. What if I take it? Let me fix that. Let me make it a little bit heavier like this. And then I'm just going to make the bottom stay very thin like that. So that was something that's going to change the look and shape. It was by rotating that head ball a little bit more, getting that into more of a 3/4 shape. That might help. Okay. Let's do a couple more. By the way, I'm not a fan of that at all, but I'm telling you this, it's true. In order for you to get the good drawings out, the bad drawings are going to come with it. It's going to happen because you're going to look at things that you did and then you're going to figure out how to adjust the design. So now let me take this body shape. What if I do this? What if I angle his chest up and out a little bit more? What if I get a curve in here? What if this becomes smaller in the back? And now I have much more gestural movement, part of him. I get the wing coming in here. The wing might come there. Maybe I make the head a little bit smaller. I put an eye in here. Now I bring the beak down. Beak's a lot larger now. In there. So I'm putting the visual identifiers on my character. But I'm also doing it by pushing and trying to pull the body shapes out too. Maybe I was wondering if I should widen that or not. Guy, look at that. That guy looks like a ducky. I hate him. But that's okay. You're going to have bad drawings. There's nothing wrong with bad drawings. When I worked with Phil Mendez, I remember Phil Mendez telling us stories about him going into Animate, working with Mark Davis. And some of these animators, some of the 9 old men, they would get in there early, and they would do a bunch of drawings and they would warm up because they're trying to get the bad drawings out. What if the back feathers are all messed up? Now I start getting a lot more movement and life in my character. By the way, one thing I haven't been addressing is any feet at all. I'm going to come in here and start to throw some feet in. So all of a sudden I look at that guy and I'm like, hey, that's not bad. I like him. So I'm going to come in here, delete this guy. He wasn't quite working for me. And oops. And again, I'm back to variations. You know what's funny is I went to, right before COVID had hit, Frank and I went to CTN. And guess who I ran into? Glenn Vilppu. And I walked up to Vilppu and started talking to him. And I go, do you remember me? He goes, I remember you. You're the illustrator that would always do that. He nailed it. That was like 20 years ago, and he still remembered me, which is just a funny story. But because that's what good memory he has. By the way, if any of you want to take, he's such an amazing figure drawing artist. He has classes offered from the local 839. And the only thing is you have to drive all the way into North Hollywood to take the classes, but they're affordably priced. And there are a couple other instructors that teach some classes there to guide and help students with things. Let's do something different now. Let's push a shape. What if I go for a gummy bear shape? One big blob, boom. What if that's the body shape? What if feathers come up higher? Hold on a minute. I meant to do it on another layer. So let's do that again. Big gummy bear shape, large body. Maybe feathers come up and they curl a little bit. Maybe the wing is in here. It's a little bit smaller. Maybe the face is tucked into the body a little bit more like this. So I'm looking at my other shapes. Like, see how this shape, see how this line right here tucked in right there? So I look at that and I'm like, can I get that back in here like this right there? But maybe I can get it to tuck in and then come down to the center here like this. So maybe I can bring this up here and wrap that up. Now I can get, and then I can come up here, wrap over on top. Now I can get that beak in here like this. Maybe this beak is a little bit more, trying to get a right angle for it. Maybe it comes out a little. It's really large. Like, what if it comes all the way down to here? So what if it comes from here, comes out like that? And then he tapers like this. Now I'm getting them. Now I come in, just eyes for placement, right? Eye over there. Maybe I get more of a taper on the wing. Comes into here. Okay. So do you see how my shape's changing pretty quickly? Now I want to go in and draw more birds. Just doing this as a quick demo to try to get you into thinking about shape and shape language, but most importantly, keeping your drawings simple and rough, keeping them loose, having them be exploratory, gathering reference, and of course, doing multiple variations to push you across, you know? So look at where I started. Big, ugly, nasty, massing shapes, you know? I like the direction of that guy. I like the direction of that guy. And historically speaking, whenever I go to draw anything, the more versions I do, the better and more comfortable I get in the sketch. Let's do a couple more. Uh-oh. Let me zoom in here.
Hey, Phil.
Yeah, John, what's up?
So I imagine that, like, it takes people different amounts of time. Like, there's no set amount of time for people to be able to get in the zone where they're like, all right, I'm warmed up, I'm ready to go. My drawings are getting a lot better and things like that. For someone who it takes, maybe 45 minutes to an hour to get into that zone, what would you suggest for that person to do if, like, they have to work at a studio or something like that where they don't have the luxury to warm up? Do they just draw before work or something, or what?
Well, everyone warms up. I every studio I ever worked at, I would come in, but I would work more than like 8-hour days. I mean, I usually would come in and I would sit down and do 20 minutes of warm up. I'd be sitting in traffic for a pretty large distance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And being in that much traffic it wasn't bad going in. It was worse coming home in California,
Mm-hmm.
Too, though, like, because I feel like a lot of artists, and I'm sure majority of people do, experience burnout from time to time. That, like, it's something people deal with in the industry.
Well, absolutely. I mean, here's the thing. Here's like the realistic side of art. I always think like is like in a perfect world, you want to draw, perfect world. If I go back to when I was a student, in my perfect world, I was going to be hired to just do children's book illustration. I would make $100,000 a year. That's not the reality. That was never the reality. The reality is that you're working for a company, you're drawing things that sometimes you don't want to draw. That's the reality, So how do you finesse that, change that, modify it, if that makes sense? This guy's coming out really larger than I wanted to, but to give me an idea of pronouncing his belly out and changing his shape a little bit like this. So I went beyond the means here. It's so there's going to be burnout, but here's the thing. I'll give you this example to like a lawyer. Lawyers make a bundle of money, and they're happy because they make lots of money and they do well, right? Every now and then, lawyers like to take a pro bono case to do something because it makes them feel better about the work that they're doing. So if you're working in a studio and you're doing cleanup boards, or maybe you're doing something boring, like what if you get hired and you have to pay your dues by doing turns of vehicles and props all day long, right? Nothing wrong with that. You do it, but then when you go home, how much more time of the day do you have? You got a ton of time. So maybe you go home and you do watercolor. Maybe you go home and maybe you sit and work on mechs and robots. Maybe you make something. Like there's other forms of creativity. My daughter knits all the time. She makes things. She made a beanie for my wife. She makes, you know what I mean? Like there's all different kinds of things you can do. So you have to find that handover. For me, what I had to do is I would work, leave the studio. I would go to the gym. I'd work out for a little bit because it cleared any stress I had. Then I had 2 hours to go home. So I would go home and I would just sketch an environment. I would maybe think of an idea for a series. I'd watch something new on film and try to learn more about storyboarding or cinema. I would take a class at Concept Design Academy, or I found this group of artists who would go out and do sketches, and they would meet on Fridays and Saturdays. So that's it. You just balance your time. You try to round it off, if that makes sense, you know? But I mean, I think in any career, in any field, people are going to get burned out. So it's not just that it's art. It's going to be in everything, right? So your job is to figure out how to keep your job fun and happy. I mean, in all honesty, there were shows I worked on at companies that drove me nuts. I don't want to do my executive voice, but I will real quick. You'd like turn in artwork. And I remember we did this one, we had this big environment. We'd already done the thumbnails. We did the rough drawings. We then got the drawing approved, and then I modeled it in Maya, and then my colorist was doing work on it. And then we had a new art director put on, and this lady came to look at it. And the lady that's looking at it started going, well, you know what? I don't know if I like that thing in the back. She started making design decisions. She started changing things that are already approved. And I'm like looking at my director like this. We're in a Zoom meeting, and I'm like, we're writing on Post-its, passing Post-its to each other. I'm like, what the hell is she talking about? And then the lady actually goes, you know, I showed it to my daughter, and my daughter said this. And then I'm sitting there, and my director writes on a note. He's all, who made your daughter the effing art director? And then passes it back to me. And that's how frustrated we were getting with this client, because they kept going back and changing things that are already approved. But that's just the way it is. So that wasn't a pleasant. I knew anything I submitted was going to go through 10 to 15 changes, no matter what. And so, hey, I left that week, and I made $1,800 that week. So what? I don't care. I made $1,800. I'll change whatever you want me to do. And here's maybe the thing that's a little different for me. I worked in construction. When I was a kid, I learned how to do drywall. I learned how to lay stone. I learned how to dig pits and holes for concrete. Construction sucks. I'm sorry. It's very hard work, you know? When I went to art school, I got a gig in the Bay Area working as a security guard. Do you know what it was like working in the Bay? This was back, it's worse than it is now. Do you know what it's like working around homeless people in the Bay Area who don't care anything about you or what you're doing? They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to listen to anything. You're like, you know, I actually worked at the Gap headquarters. It was one of the locations I had right in off of Market Street, which Gap just left, by the way, because it's so bad there. But I remember working there and realizing like, dude, I don't want to do this profession anymore. Like I'm doing it to pay rent. When I'm done with this, I'm finished. Has any of you guys ever had horrible jobs?
Yes.
I mean, I've had some pretty bad jobs. I mean, I was working when I was 12 and 13. I was digging ditches working for my buddy's construction company. You know, my dad, when he was a kid, he grew up in the middle of the Nazi invasion of Greece. and he didn't even have a chance to work or job. They had no money. They had nothing. They were dirt poor. So it's like, I look back at that stuff and I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't want to say this because I was talking about this last night in my class a little bit. There's a little bit of the term is complacency in this country where people are like, they get this little attitude of how much money they want to make. And I'm like, dude, when you go into like construction and stuff, that's really, really difficult work. And when I hear students talk about like, oh, I'll never accept a job that doesn't pay more than $1,800 a week, I go, well, then you got a problem, because if someone offered me $700 a week, I would take it, right? You got, everyone earns their stripes in every field and in every position, so I don't know. I always come back to that thought process. Hold on. I'm trying to sketch a guy here. I'm too busy talking. Trying to mess with the beak. I'm going to get the beak really big and fat here. Maybe it's straight and more curved coming off. That's a different shape. And then maybe this shape stays lower. Maybe it is a bite like this. Maybe the front of the hair comes off. And as I get down here, maybe the body's squashed. So I don't know. I don't view it as getting burned out. I think when you have, here's where life changes, because I talk to students all the time, and one of my students was like, yeah, man, it's a totally different place. I'm out now in the industry, and like I have to pay $1,300 for a 1-bedroom apartment. I have to pay for insurance costs to drive my car. My parents are no longer paying for these things that I was paying for before, right? So wouldn't you agree that changes people? There's a reality of life there that, that's why sometimes I tell you guys, like I was writing some of you in this class about coming in on time. What happens when you come in late at Warner Brothers? You're warned. And then what happens when you come in late again? You're fired. That's it. There's 20 other people that want your job. So I always come back to you. You can't do your work on time in class. You can't come to class on time. Well, then your reputation starts here, right? How are you going to make it in an industry that's 20 times more competitive for people? And you could do very well in this industry. You could have a very long life. And when I mean life, I mean you could go around and work studio to studio. Do you think you're going to be working studio to studio when you can't even make it to work on time? If you can't make it to class on time here, what happens when you have to put up work for a critique board? Has anyone in here ever been fired for coming late to work? I know people that have. I saw a student who was at Walt Disney Imagineering who was in as an internship lose the internship because they were late. They decided to go get coffee one morning, and they didn't know that John Lasseter and Ed Catmull were going to be surprise visitors to Disney Imagineering that day. True story. And because I know a senior art director there that told me about the story, and two of those students were from the local, there were 3 students in an internship, and they were all incredibly late to one meeting. And that meeting happened to be the meeting that Ed Catmull showed up to and Lasseter, and they were pitching Disney new rides and engagement for Disney Theme Park Tokyo. And one of the students who was the student who was supposed to get offered the job after the internship decided to stop at Starbucks and get a Starbucks drink, and there was a line. If I went to Starbucks and there was a line, do you know what I would do? I would leave and go to work, because what's more important, coffee or a possible job making $95,000 a year? End of story. That's easy. If you can't choose those priorities in life, then you got a problem, and you're going to have a difficult time with life. So I don't know. I was just explaining to a couple of my students. I've had more students sort of drop this semester and fade out than I've ever had before. And I think, oh, I'm on a different layer here. Where was I? I think that is because we're dealing with post-COVID generation who a lot of students were able to sit in a room and not do anything. Okay, something's going on here. Photoshop isn't working. I'm on that layer. Hold on. There it is. There. I was on the wrong layer. And in COVID, some of you guys were passed through high school with, like, you know, teachers were more lenient. But now COVID's done and people are coming back and they're sort of falling apart a little bit, you know? And this whole idea that you could be like not turn in work, not be part of a pitch. Hold on. Photoshop's not working. Like, see the plus? It won't go to, there it goes. It's lagging. So it goes to plus and it leaves. Stays on minus the whole time. Hold on. Let me see if I can move it this way. Now, whatever. I wanted to squeeze one more character in there. Okay. Let me focus on this demo. I'm trying to get Photoshop to work and it doesn't appear to be working. I only wanted to select these guys here. Let me see if I can move them. Yay, I finally got it to work. So the lasso tool isn't working, but that would work. Okay, I would like to show you my process and how I do things. It's important for me. So look at where I started. And look at all the shapes and the variants I have done now. Do you see that? You see the exploration happening there? This is what I sort of wanted you guys to do. This is just a basic drawing class. I'm exposing you to messing with characters and squash and stretch a shape. This is the first thing that will tend to come out of your brain because your brain is a program thinker. Your brain goes, what have you already told me? What do I know? There's the first response. In order to get past that first response and to get something else, you have to be able to do variations. The last thing I was going to show you here is here's something that I learned, which was like happy accidents, okay? Take a shape. I'm not going to draw any construction. So I'm just going to come in here and do this. Take that shape, and now you have to create a bird out of that shape. So I'll do a couple examples. There's one. There's another. Around it there. There's another shape. Okay. If you force yourself to have to design in parameters, you can get some really good results that normally you might not get if you're overthinking part of the design. So by doing this, you could come up with some really unique ideas very quickly. And it really pushes you to have to learn how to work inside your shape language. So I do this all the time in my sketchbook. I think I showed you guys some of the alligators I was working on. Just turn these into the back feather of the bird there. There, do you see how quick I did that? I don't know if that looks like a toucan as much anymore, but that's okay. The purpose was to push myself to think outside the box and have to conform and design something in another type of shape like that. So that's totally different than any other shapes I've done. So I was doing that the other day when I was sketching the grandmas, you know, I was trying to make sure I stayed out of certain shapes and went a different direction. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work as well. You know, you have bad days, good days. But your goal is to try to get yourself to go out of your comfort zone. I think any good designer will talk and explain that to you about moving out of comfort zones, getting out of your drawing and being able to push yourself. Anyone have any questions while I'm sketching on what I'm trying to do here? If you have one, just fire away.
So now I'm coming from a background of having zero knowledge or practice of really drawing people or animals. So when I'm going to, I'm be honest here, when I'm watching you design like faces and stuff, like for the grandmas and things, I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know how on earth I'm going to do that.
Well, start with what you know. Focus on shape. Maybe you're going to have to gather some reference. Now, this isn't character design class. This is just a basic drawing class where we're experimenting, and I'm trying to introduce you to basics of design. Some of you might struggle with this your first time, and there's nothing wrong with that. Some of you might come back into it and be like, oh, really? I learned this cool thing in Phil's class, and now I want to push it a little bit further at home when I have more time. Or maybe you want to push it when you have more time to get into the mood. That's one thing we were talking about a minute ago. I just wanted to comment on that. Mood is huge for me. It's harder for me at school year when you're just drawing live and the recorder's on, because I'm busy talking, not focusing. When I go sit at a coffee house and then I'm sitting and I'm drawing, I tend to do a lot better because I have no distractions. I have good music. The music calms me. The music allows me to think about what I'm doing and allows me to figure out shapes a little bit better, John. So I don't know if that makes a difference for you. Is it easier for you to connect and produce work, when you're in a quiet environment? Or are you just going to struggle from day one type of thing?
If I can force myself away from my distractions and just kind of get like, for me, basically the first half hour is essentially me fighting all my distractions and inclinations to do something else. And then after that half hour, it's like, all right, I'm in the zone and I can just be more productive than I thought. But that first 30 minutes is the worst.
I fully agree with you now. So to be honest with you, now I know how I feel when I do a demo. The first 20, 30 minutes, I need to wrap my brain around that and get into it, try to avoid problems and whatever. And that's common to me. You just gotta find a way to get out of it. And it's hard, but that's why, what's the one thing I always talk about in environment design, right? When we're drawing environments and props, your first page is always the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Wouldn't you agree? Because I've had for a couple years on classes and doing all kinds of stuff. Your first page is usually your worst designs. And so imagine if you do good designs, if you really sit and focus and apply yourself, how much better those designs could be, Well,
it's not just the designs. It's like the more you go, not only do your designs get better, but you start getting more loose and you don't overthink it. And you're not like pushing your stylus down like, oh, no, everything improves the more you go.
I fully agree with you there. So what I was doing for this exercise, you see how I forced myself into those shapes? And I just try to keep the main. So look at the difference. Look at how cool these reeds start to become when I force myself into shapes.
I do that sometimes too, because I feel like it works really well. What you just did works really well to combat overthinking. Like, the birds.
Oh, it does. It does. And I have like a couple of the people I worked with that taught me that. Phil Mendez taught me that. I watched him sketch and he would just do something and go a different direction. I learned that being around a couple other people doing stuff, and then it just forces you to go. So, I mean, again, look at how stiff that is and how empty it is, lack of life and feeling. And then here we are just sketching for 30 minutes. And then boom, I start getting some shapes that are really, really cool. And imagine if I'm at home and then I get to listen to music I want to listen to. And I have some really nice headphones that I have an special amplifier, magnify sound on the headphones so I could hear all the highs and the mids. Man, and nothing's better than putting on some. I have a pair of headphones, a couple of different ones. I have a pair of AKG, which are Austrians. They're pretty good sound. They're about $400 headphones I saved up for. Then I bought another pair of Beyerdynamic headphones, and those are $600. No, $380, I believe. And those are they're very soft and cushy. Man, I can hear like the drop of a pin needle in an orchestra. That's how good the sound is in those. And then I have a pair of Grados, the GRADO. It's an American company. Those are really good too. But man, they have a pair with walnut and they're exposed. They're $1,500. I can't justify buying those yet, but eventually I will get to that. So let me do some other shapes here. To me, there's just a real funness in sticking with shapes, and forcing yourself, because then you start making yourself have to design in these patterns, and to me that's cool. There, two other different because you're right. I'm like you, like I tell you guys as students, don't overthink your designs, be happy with them, don't overthink your work. But I just have that tendency to overthink things too much. And it's so much easier to force myself into another direction. Especially this is very helpful, getting that center line down the construction of the front of that. And if I come in here and just think of the body itself being in here as a bag, and then just maybe this guy barely even has wings. We don't even see the wings. He's all beak and all tail feather, why not? Actually, doing that shape got me to a different angle here. Think about bird, and what if he has large feet? So I like him a lot. Again, happy accident, basic shape, construction in there, center line. The only thing sucks is the eye's on the other side. I don't see it in there, but that's okay. But so what I did before with the grandma, now I could take this bird. Imagine how many cool designs I could come off of that bird, right? And look at how much looser I'm getting too, the more that I sketch. So the more you start familiarizing yourself with these shapes and thinking about how they really construct and work, the better. I like doing this thing with the center line down the beak and then bring the center of the beak down a little bit. And that allows you to overlap a little bit down here. So when the other beak comes in here, it can sort of, I don't know if it's possible. What if I have a bend in the beak like that? I'm wondering if that could really be done in 3D. You might be able to pull that off, but I wanted to. So now I have a guy with a huge beak. So look at the shape I gave myself. Really limited shape here. So I got to really compress. I don't even know how to get the feathers in there. I want to see the other eye though up here. So I'm going to put the eyes up a little bit higher. Feather. I feel like I'm doing Angry Birds.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Well, it wasn't my intent to do that. I'm just goofing around with the shape, trying to squash it and stretch it and to see what it comes up to. But he does have that frown on there, that sort of negative frown. But here, let me see if I can make him happy. Put him up this way. Get that in there, and then maybe there's his other center line. Back down to this. Maybe he has a huge overbite. Maybe his other wing pops out. So I'm still keeping him in a shape, pretty close to it. Just rough, have fun with it. And, I got to admit, when I was sitting down, you ever have one of those days where you go to draw and like I was on Spotify, then I went to Pandora And when I hit Pandora, I put on like Silver Sun pickups, and I heard like every one of my favorite songs from them and the Strokes and a bunch of other bands. And I just had like this awesome sketch day, you know? And sometimes I've noticed that too. I'm very music driven and peace and quiet driven. So if I have really good music and some really good peace and quiet, I can come up with some really better designs. And
it's actually one of the reasons why I don't do a whole lot of work during class, because like I need music to work.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's hard. That's why sometimes for me it's hard doing demos in the middle of a class, because you don't have that chance to get into the scheme of things. You know what I mean? So here we go. So there, I'm going to wrap that up. And look, now that's a whole nother just page of exploration of shapes, right? So that's sort of what our goal was today. Is I just wanted to show you how I look at the first shape I started with. Look at how nasty that is. It's just blocked out. It's not really that fun. It wasn't that interesting. And then look at how much loose and how much rougher my drawings became the more I got into it, you know? And that's it. That's that exploration of shapes. So I look at these and I go, man, this guy was a happy accident. I really like this guy in the corner right here. Like I could really work off of that guy. I like this guy right here. I love this guy with the dragging butt. Maybe he walks around and he's lazy and his feathers just drag behind him and he walks, you know, sort of depressed, you know? So I'm just scratching the surface of what I could do next. And then I would take these like I did with the grandma, line up my 3 favorite ones, start doing renditions of them and see what you come up with. And people will really respect you. And one of the things I'm going to mention now is that even people that aren't artists, there's a similarity between an art director and similarity between an art director and similarity between my wife. My wife is non-artistic. She cannot draw a stick figure, right? That's how bad her art is. I pick her outfits out for her when we go out. I look at stuff and go, oh, that color would match that. She has to see things on mannequins. But the similarity that she has is that art directors look at shape and they look at outlines and they look at visual reads. And guess what? People that aren't trained in art do that as well. They look at shapes and they look at that and go, oh, that shape that's stretched and contorted, it has a feel of somebody that's, you know, that's not happy, or maybe they're sad. Or they might look at, you know, this shape, see that the perky curve in there and the eyes popping out and the round curves in there. Those round curves are indicative of happiness in a design. So if I want to push a character to have more happy feel, I need to really push those curves in my character too. Okay. So this is just a basic drawing class. My whole goal is to expose you guys to stuff you've never thought about in the world of design. And there is, wouldn't you agree, everything we've done in this class, there's a lot to say about how oops, hold on, I think I merged two layers. There's a lot to say about shape and form. So go back to day one, and we were talking about the basic cylinders and the shapes and squares and cubes. Do you see how those squares and cubes make up people now? And you see how those squares and cubes make up animals and birds, and how they make up vehicles and they make up spaceships. It's all relative back to shape and form. So if you go back and think about shape and form, and just, I'm always thinking about center lines and rotating shape, squashing, pulling. You need to be able to go in. Imagine if you had a rubber ball and you could squash that rubber ball and you could pull it this way and stretch it this way. You have to get your brain to think about that. And if you can do that and sketch it, it's just going to lead to being a better designer, and everything that you do and make is going to be better because of that, you know? Okay, I'm going to wrap it up. If there's no questions from anyone online, let me take roll really quickly. Hold on, let me stop the recorder. And that was a lot of fun to get to draw for you guys. Technically, Monday, we're going to go to a new topic. You guys want to do one more day of character?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Characters are a lot of fun. You get hooked into it. So how about on Monday, I come back? But Monday, how about I do an all-day draw day again? Is that cool? I'll just draw and I'll start putting more detail, and I'll start working on some other shapes with dogs and other stuff and develop them. How about I skip crit for Monday, but we do crit on Wednesday instead? Is that cool? Okay, awesome. That'll be fun. So let's do that. Let me stop the share, stop the recording here. Thanks, guys. That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.